Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and today we've got Kayla Lewis of NAPS Chicago here to discuss non-alc events hosting, planning, and all the hot topics. I'm so excited to dive in and learn more, so let's get right to it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kayla.
I'm so happy to be here and so excited to get to talk about naps and partying and non-alcoholic beverages, all the good stuff.
Yeehaw! Let's go ahead and get started. And I want to just hear right off the bat, what is NAPS and how did it get started?
So naps is a non-alcoholic party scene. I started it out of my own selfish need of wanting to still have a fun environment to do things in. I had stopped drinking in March of 2023 and I started to make a lot of friends pretty quickly. And it was great. But I realized a lot of the places we were going were not places I really wanted to hang out. So there was a coffee shop, there's a library, there's, just small things like that. There are diners that stay open until midnight. All of these things we were going to because of the fact that, oh, yeah, well, that's not centered around drinking. But I was like, okay, we have to do better. Just because it's not centered around drinking does not make it fun. I love hanging out with my friends, but I'm like, we can still have a life here, even if we're not drinking. And I actually started dipping my toe into the non-alc drinks, and my first experience with that was Hi-O, and I'm so glad that it was because they just embodied everything that was going on in my brain that was like fun, party, here's a drink that tastes good, that's good for you. Like I had no idea that stuff like that existed. So it really carried me through the summer of 2023. And I was just kind of having small parties with friends of mine, and I would have some of the drinks, and then more people started to hear about it and wanted to do it. And I was like, yeah, well, I was happy to send them in the direction of things that I had heard of, but people were like, it's just still not it, right? So I said, okay, let me try something here. And I came home, I talked with my boyfriend and his cousin, who is one of my closest friends. I was like, guys, I just went to this event. I think I think there's something there, but I think I could really, push past that. I think I could do better. Um, and so Naps was born. We had that little conversation there. I told them my ideas and we talked about the name and toyed around with so many different names, which is kind of funny because I was obsessed with the name Sands. And little did I know that like Sands Academy is such a huge thing. I was like, oh, my bad. Okay. So we got to naps and I was super excited about that. And that has just been able to roll off the tongue. And I had my launch party last December, and it was just such an awesome experience to have so many people show up. And really, we were centered around like actually communicating with each other. We had a night out, we dressed up, like, actually had people there that I'd never met before. And I got introduced to so many different products thereafter because the non-out community, especially the people behind the brands, are working so hard to really make a difference, or at least the ones I have worked with thus far, to really like change the narrative of sober or sober curious. They're really like, hey, let's focus on the good here. Let's have fun. Let's change it. It's a hard thing to deal with when you stop drinking for whatever your reason is. It's just hard because our society is so focused on that. But working with those brands who make actual good products that get people excited because it's still an important piece of socializing to have something in your hand.
Hmm.
And that I don't like, that's totally fine. So if we have something that's better for you to put in your hand, then let's go for it. So after that launch party, I had the opportunity to drink a lot of different non-alcoholic stuff, and and some were great and some were not, and yeah, it's just been a really cool experience. It's been kind of a whirlwind, honestly. It feels like every day I make a new connection with somebody, whether it be for naps or personally, who's like, "Hey, I stopped drinking. I what do you think?" Or it's just been a really amazing experience so far.
Oh, I think the name Naps is so cool. It gives me this like speakeasy vibe because I mean, actual naps, I'm a huge fan of. And then non-alc party scene, also huge fan of. So it's like no matter the mood, I'm always in the mood for Naps Chicago. It's very easy to remember. And it also kind of like I feel no pressure when I hear the name, when I look at your social media and the types of events you throw, which I feel like sometimes, there's all these different types of scenes we can be a part of. And I think it's so cool that, we're finally at the point in the industry where there are multiple people who are, working on creating social atmospheres, events, however it ends up displaying. But to be able to niche down is so cool because you can't throw any single party and invite everyone on planet Earth and everyone will have a good time, right? Like you got to be a little bit more themed sometimes, a little bit more selective. And while yes, non-alc is already a niche, there's a lot of there's a lot of different people under this big old umbrella. So I would love to hear from you, what is your favorite type of event to throw? Like there's so many different fun things, so many different ways to party. How do you like to party?
There are so many different ways, and I think right out of the gate, I was like, "Okay, I want something where everyone has to dress up." That was my first thing. I was like, "I want this at nighttime, and I want people to come out, like, bring your A game." I think that's basically what I said on that first invitation was something like, "Dress to impress." I don't know. I just wanted people to feel good, that feeling of getting ready, going out, doing something awesome. So that was the first one. And then I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have always loved a themed party." And this goes back, like, probably to my 5th birthday. Like, I wanted people dressed up in a certain, theme. I want us to all be together and, like, have a good time. So I did, a Gatsby event, which was so awesome. I had a really
Ooh.
Yeah, it was, like, really kick that was another one that people were so excited to have something to do, like, "Okay, we've got this theme, we're gonna act these parts." We have blackjack tables, we had, the specialty, like, little cocktails. People went all out and they did amazing. Um, I love doing theme parties like that. So anytime there's an opportunity for a theme, I'm in. Some themes I have coming up. One in particular, I am a massive Taylor Swift fan, and I was like, one day I will figure out how to make people come to a Taylor Swift naps party. And so I did. And so yeah, so November 2nd, she is coming to Indiana. And I was like, "Well, I'm not far from Indiana. We're gonna have an Eras party." So I'm teaming up with Generation NA, and if you are at all into the Taylor Swift like realm of crazy like myself, there are so many themes within like that in itself, and that is something I love to base it off of because there's so many good outfits. There's the dressing up, there's the joy that it brings to people. So whenever I'm looking for a theme, obviously I'm looking for something where people can dress up, where, like it's pretty easy to figure out an outfit. I love if there's some good music involved. I love an activity of any sort of kind. I love them. So yeah, I really just base it off that. I love themes and fun, and especially if it's a theme that I personally am obsessed with, then I'm really into it. So, like my Taylor Swift one. So can't
Yes.
cannot cannot say how excited I couldn't say enough how excited I am about that one.
Themed parties are such a great Like you're speaking to my heart so deeply here because, again, there's a lot of different niches out there. There's a lot of different ways that people like to have fun. And I feel like one of the hard things about people who are just starting to discover what it's like to go out without alcohol, it's a lot like going out when you're 18 or 21 for the first time when, you don't really have experience, you don't know how things work. Cause like you think about it, if you have your drunk glasses on, like you're looking at the world in a totally different way. And the moment you take those off, again, you have more in common with an 18-year-old than you do people your age who still are actively drinking, because now you're no longer numbing yourself to the environment, which means, yeah, there might be more triggers, there might be more anxiety, but the more fun and nuance you add to these events, the more it's like, oh, well, there's no time for even having any of those thoughts because everyone's dressed up so amazing or so ridiculous that you can't help but to start a conversation and get over anything that kind of can block you from connecting. And I think that that's really cool, really special. And I can't say enough, like, coming from a performer background, like I used to spend more money on my costumes than my real clothes. Like I'm pretty sure my real clothes closet was a third of the size, and most of it was like athleisure slash can wear to sleep slash can wear to class so that I could spend all the money on my costumes and my rhinestones and my feathers. So you're speaking to my heart. And I think it's so cool that you're putting this out there because the next time I'm in Chicago, I am definitely coming to one of your events.
Yes, you absolutely have to. And that piece that you just touched on, the anxiety, that social anxiety, I think that is something that w- on some level we all deal with, whether, you're drinking or not. I mean, for me, it's literally people talk about it as a social lubricant, right?
Yep.
Like, okay, so you remove that from the equation. And I remember having this conversation at the very beginning, and trying to explain it to people who were not really living in my head, obviously. And I was like, no, 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 you don't need it. We just have to have other things to focus on. And that has been also a really important piece, whether it be a theme or showing up at an arcade bar. That's something I have coming up. Like something cool and something nostalgic is always very exciting to bring to the table because you start putting more dopamine, more joy into your body without, like, numbing yourself out, because for me, along with the social lubricant, I was numbing out the bad feelings, but I was also numbing out the good feelings. So I had missed out on some of that, and I want to be
Yeah.
able to create those things for other people to see, like, hey, this is an option and you don't necessarily need that because here's your social lubricant. It's just having fun, right? But here's a drink too if you want it. So definitely focusing on always having an activity is whatever it is. I mean, whatever my brain comes up with, I'm pretty open to many ideas, but that has been super helpful. And people start to connect that don't even know each other. And then they go home and they remember it and they talk the next day. And I see people from a NAPS event on Instagram together or going on a trip. And I'm like, this is crazy. It's so amazing.
Mm, that's just the warm heart tingles of it all, right? Like most people who are in this industry are looking to make an impact and make a difference and to see people connect. Like that's literally the definition of like the opposite definition, I should say, of addiction, because addiction is something that you deal with alone or depression. A lot of these things that people are numbing themselves from or hiding within is always it tends to be a solo activity. So to be able to create something that's not only memorable but connecting and like that warmth, like that does more healing to a community than I feel like event producers of this category will ever be given the full credit of. So I just want to like hats off to you right now. And especially like we had another conversation earlier about how you have a really strong pull towards helping connect the college crowd in an alc free environment. So I'd love to hear you speak more on that.
Yeah, that has definitely been a huge, huge pull for me. I'm a big fan of Gen Z and the younger crowd, like, a huge fan. I know everybody has their their hangups, but I'm like, they're really seeing, I think, um, the negative impacts that alcohol has kind of had on some of, like, for me, I have 2 brothers that are Gen Z, and, they've seen it. They've seen these things, and they're like, I'm gonna pull away from that," but they're also still trying to figure out, well, like, "How do I socialize? How do I do this? How do I do that?" And for me, I'm like, "What if we just come show you what to do?" And there's also that part of me that wishes when I was like 22, 23, that somebody had have came and said, "Hey, I've got this Ganep seltzer and it's got magnesium and L-theanine in it and it's going to help you chill without making you black out." I would have been like, "Okay, let's do this," right? But that option wasn't there for me. So I really am working hard to connect with that group of people because those years are so fun, and but there's also a lot of dark that can come from that, and I don't sometimes think that the full education is there for that age group because you what do? You go to college, you start to party, like, that's just kind of the regular, and, the more people I speak with who are like, "I went so hard in college, and now I don't know, like, where do I fall into?" I get it, like 100% get it, and I want to be able to go in and reach those people and going in and doing the activities that they wanna do, like, again, being out at a bar, like, it doesn't mean that, you can't go to those places anymore, but actually having another option to drink. The biggest thing for me, because there was a lot of times that I would go out and I would be like, "Okay, I really do not wanna drink tonight. I just don't wanna stress myself out with that." But there were no options, and I'm just talking like 5 years ago, like, there's nothing on the menu. Thank God those things are changing, and I would love it to see some of these college bars and things like, "Hey, yeah, we have 5 to 10 just different options for you right here." So no one's asking you questions because I think that is a big deal for college age people and beyond, honestly, of having that awkward conversation like, "Oh yeah, I'm just drinking a seltzer and lime and please don't ask me any more questions." Instead of just being able to go up, order a drink and walk away without any questions asked. But the way I approach that is, I talk a lot to Gen Zers. Like, I like hearing their thoughts. I like to hear what they're liking about the party scene, what they don't like about the party scene. Like, um, connecting with a couple of different universities to kind of get a feel on where can I come in and like be that, I don't know, definitely not a voice of reason because I never wanna ever be, like, the preachy person about it, but just to say, "Hey, here's a different option, here's a different way to party, and you're you're not, like, weird for wanting to not do something that has the potential to harm you." So, that is something I'm working very hard on. So, right now I have a couple universities that I'm connecting with and we'll see. So more to come on that as things progress. I'm very excited to connect with that group of people.
I am so thankful that you are reaching out to the universities to do this work because, even in my memory, I graduated college in 2016 and, you know, even though I worked at a tea bar that was open until midnight, sometimes a little bit later, like I still felt like I had a really hard time when I would enter a bar or even when I was performing during college and I'd already had my drinks before the show, but now that everyone's there and excited, oh, have another drink, whatever. And if you were to turn down a drink, you get questions about your health. Are you pregnant? Like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? Because, at least in the Midwest, like Midwestern drinking culture is like, I mean, it's deeply embedded in in so many different uh cultural transactions that happen. And And to be like, how profound to be able to say, instead of just like you said, like, soda, or whatever, like, to be able to just be like, can I have this drink? Insert drink name here. And it's not a
Right.
conversation. Like, it's so profoundly, insanely beautiful, especially knowing like we have all these other options on the market. And by the way, yeah, some non-alc drinks are like incredibly sober where they just make you feel refreshed, or they just taste good, or they have some interesting complex mouth feels. But there are other ones that still make you feel something, but they don't make you forget everything. So
Hmm.
profound. It's such a cool, important difference here. That being
Yes.
said, I am really curious, being in the Midwest specifically, I'm not saying that other places don't drink, but like I'm from Wisconsin. Like, oh my God, it's very heavy. Like moving to Vegas, I was actually inspired to become sober because people were way healthier there. So I'm really curious from you, like, have you received any negative pushback, or are you primarily receiving like curiosities?
I think it's a lot of curiosity, and honestly, it's funny because I grew up in the South, and I grew up in North Carolina, and our drinking was like, "Hey, it's high school, let's go," right? Like, "You're 14, let's go for it."
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, like, completely normal. That wasn't like, I mean, our parents, like, knew, but they weren't very well, like, saying, "Oh, this is great," but they weren't really stopping us either. And that was everybody. So it was like, okay, we're doing this thing. So for me, whenever we moved to Chicago, from there, I knew because my boyfriend's family lives in Milwaukee, so I knew that there was a big drinking culture there. For Chicago, I didn't know so much. We moved like during the pandemic, so like I didn't get that idea that, holy cow, I'm in such a huge drinking city. I really didn't know that, and that's probably for my benefit. Um, because otherwise I would have been like, what am I doing this? But the more I realized, I was like, okay, but now moving into kind of behind the scenes with different bars and restaurants, I definitely get a lot of pushback that I am still like, some of it still kind of blows my mind. I know that I'm so deep in it now in the non-alc space, and talking to people like you, talking to people like the brands, and other people just in general, I am like, "Oh yeah, we're all like catching on, right? Like you get why this is important to have, right?" No, like it's still such a, I don't know how to even describe it. It's such a small conversation that they are like, "But why? Why would anyone want this?" And that takes sometimes me going back and forth with emails and like statistics, like depending on who it is. Sometimes I can just really sit down and talk with a bar owner or a restaurant owner, and that is usually super impactful. But going back and forth with some of these bigger spots, they're very confused as to why non-alc is important to have on your menu. And that is so interesting to me because, like I said, I'm so into it, and to me, it just seems like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you have it? My biggest thing I always say is like, "Hey, do you have a gluten-free menu?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." And then I'm like, "Well, why don't you have an alcohol-free menu? Like, what's the difference?" Um, where are we at with that, like you have no problem catering to that, which I think is great, so let's just get on board because not everybody wants to forget their night, and still have a good drink. So it's been very, I think I'm met with curiosity, and then I think I talk their heads off about it, and then I wear them down and they say yes. So I'm like, this is what you need and this is what we're doing.
I'm so glad that you're here to do this education, and also this example of gluten-free is just so brilliant to me. And I feel like I just laugh when we talk about how confused some of these businesses are, because like I'm like, have you guys like not looked at all of your P&L reports yet? Like all indicators, this is the most interesting fact that I was reading earlier this week. All indicators of like recessions and anything that becomes a difficult economic hardship time for people, alcohol sales have never declined. Like literally ever, except for in the 1940s around World War II time, which makes sense, right? Because,
Mhm.
the soldiers are away, everyone's at work, everyone's busy. It's wartime. But that doesn't mean it dipped so bad. It was just like that was the last time it dipped at all. But in general, it's always been constant. But yet, this is the first year since that where there is a noticeable decline. And not only is there a decline, and one could say, oh, well, is it because there's a bit of an economic hardship time now? Well, no, because again, first off, it used to always be recession proof and depression proof. Like it didn't matter, even it was prohibition proof. Like it was still
Mhm.
going hard back then. So what's happening now? Well, let's go take a look at the non-alc industry and the non-alc sector. The past few years, it has been a 500% increase year over year. By 2030, I saw it's oh man, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I remember it was like absurd. I was like, this is the moment in time where anthropologists are going to look back and be like, what's happening? Like this is real. So to me, when I hear about other companies, whether they're bars, restaurants, event venues, whatever, who haven't figured this out yet, I I find it to be very I find it to be very interesting because on one hand, it's like, okay, well, I get it because the people who are still going hard, like they're going to go hard, right? Like they're just going to do
Right.
what they want to do. So I get that you're always going to have them showing up. But the thing is, like, in order to like have a sustainable business, you wanna look into the future. There's this one bar in Wisconsin, I believe, and it's such a cool bar because they have this menu that all of the drinks, like you just read them and you order the drink, and then they ask you, do you want the alcoholic or non-alcoholic version of that? Like the entire menu. They have two separate menus on one page, but it's like literally you get to choose and they're normalizing this in a way that's not like, oh, here's the alcohol-free section of the menu. Like it's part of the experience. You get to choose your adventure, which is I think what we're all we're all hoping for in the future here. And
Yeah.
that leads me to my next question with you, which is about your menu, right? So when you're hosting these events at various locations, tell us what it's like to curate a menu, especially when it comes to like collaborating with a space that already may have drinks. Like, what is that process like for you, and how does it differ from location to location?
It definitely differs, depending on I have 3 brands that I am just personally obsessed with, and if there's any way I can ever get them involved in on whatever I'm doing, then I do it. And there's no reason not to because 'cause they're great products. But the way it works for me, getting like let's see, if I have my own event, I will generally I have Amethyst, which is my quote unquote what is it? Liquor alternative, if you will. It's a great spirit, botanical spirit. Love it. If I have a beer crowd, like I had a Super Bowl party, I mean, I know I've got to have beer there. And there's a brand Upline that I really love out of Texas. And then my favorite is Gnep, and it's a seltzer. They have a relax, restore, and an uplifting one. And that added benefit there is so cool. So for me, I will usually have those products at my events. If it's like a strictly NAPS event, then I'm like, okay, let's do it. And sometimes I'll have people reach out and say, hey, would love to, drop off some samples for your next event. And I'm like, totally down. Um, as long as, I can try it and make sure I'm not giving my guests something that totally sucks. Thankfully that hasn't happened. And then if I haven't really had this situation yet, because I don't want to say I'm going in and like strong arming anyone, but I'm like, if you want me to have a party here, you're gonna work with at least one of my brands because like I just care so much about the brands and I care so much about the people behind them that I'm like, No, if I've got my foot in the door, you're coming with, right? If we can make it happen. So that has been really cool for me. And it's opened doors for the brands and for myself to, hey, you've got one of my products, easy, let's go. Like I'll host an event there in 2 seconds. Let's just go. Um, and there are some spots that I have seen that I'm like, okay, that menu looks great. It does look great. Okay, we could try that out. It's not something I have fully leaned into yet because I, of course, am still like, you could add this to your menu and that would be great. Um, but sometimes that's just me being stubborn, I guess. But there are some really, really great non-alc menus, and if the fit is right and I think that's it, then I would absolutely do it. Right now though, I've been really lucky in the fact that a couple cool spots in Chicago are carrying like my brands. So it's pretty easy to just go throw a party there. And whenever I throw my own parties, I mean, I get the say over what comes in and what doesn't. So, and that just even saying that out loud is insane because at my first like launch party, I had no, I had no idea. I would have taken literally anything that you could have said it was like I don't know, alkaline water or something, I would have been like, yes, I'll take it. That's cool, whatever. But now it's shifted to where I'm like, no, I really am super passionate about these particular products. So hopefully that answered the question, or I just went in a circle.
No, it's awesome because I feel like there's so many different ways that people can design events and help businesses, whether those businesses are the brands or the places that you're hosting these events at. And, I know that there are people who listen to this podcast who are, you know, considering either opening new revenue streams, opening brick and mortars, trying to figure out how they can insert themselves into this industry in any professional capacity. And this just goes to show that there's not necessarily one like right way to do it. And there's not necessarily one template like here's how you can be a good event planner in the NA space because like there's so many different ways. There's so many like details you have to contend with. So, that being said, curious if there was someone out there listening who wants to, do some NA events and they want some advice and they're like, where do I start? Do I start by planning my own events? Do I reach out to businesses and ask if they want me to be their event planner? Like, what would be your advice for someone who wants to maybe start meetups like this in their own city?
Definitely, I would say get into your community first. Learn, like, actually go out and meet people in the non-alc space, whether it be a non-alc bottle shop nearby, or maybe there's a yoga community. I say yoga because they're often, very mindful and very open and welcoming. Um, any type of little connection you can make with people will like open so many doors. That's what I did. And I still can't believe where I'm at. It's really awesome. But starting to really let the community know who you are. Like it's easy to want to say like, "Hey, I'm an event planner," like, and I really like non-alc, and that's that. But they're still like, "Who are you? Like, what do you stand for? Why is this important to you?" I took a lot of time getting to know bar owners, people in the space where maybe they were just considering it. I would go into places that already had a non-alc menu just to see why they carry a non-alc menu. Like just little things like that started piling up for me and building a real trust within the community, having people over to my to my apartments like community area to be like, hey, like let's get to know each other, um truly like starting really from the ground and like making that community because you have to build a trust with people. Like if I just came at this with like no sort of trust or anyone believing in the fact that this could work, like none of this would be here. So that would be my top suggestion, is to get out and meet people and talk to them and see what they're about, because that is how things happen, is through a community. And then if you begin to be the one to lead the charge, like that's awesome. I didn't necessarily go into it like that. I saw people doing things that I thought were pretty cool. I saw things that I would have done differently, but I started actually talking to those people and seeing what it was like, and that was super helpful to me. And then scoping out, like, oh, that looks like a cool place, maybe they would let me do it. And people become really receptive once you one example. um I had not even had my launch party yet. I was just really excited. Naps was just pretty much living in my brain all day every day, and I went to a yoga event, like at this really cool rooftop, like, bar slash pizza joint. Never had been there before. My friends had just scheduled it. And I was like, okay, whatever. End up just going and talking to the teacher to learn about her yoga business. And then we got to talking. She introduces me to the owner of, or to the GM of that particular place. 3 months later, I had the whole rooftop to have a party. And I was just like,
Aw.
what? Like, what? And it was just like, it was so amazing. And things like that really go a long way. Like, talk to people, just talk to people. I think that is a something that people still kind of shy away from. I'm like, if you are interested in event planning and you have a passion for the non-alc industry, you got to go get to know people in your community. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Mm. Yeah, it's true. It's true that I feel like, party planning, event planning, I feel like it gets this reputation because it's fun and it looks so seamless and like, oh, how hard is it really? Well, until you try, you don't really know how much goes into this kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So much stuff. And the thing is, like, event planning, all these things, like, while yes, they're fun casual events for those who are joining, like, this is a legitimate business model. There are plenty of revenue streams. Like, it's a full setup. So the reason I mention all this is because I feel like oftentimes a lot of people get really excited with an idea, then they get nervous about timing, and they're like, well, dang, I got to get this product to market, this idea to market quickly so no one else gets the idea or whatever, and anxiety and things. When in reality, like, romanticizing that discovery phase of the business, of what you're doing, like, it's essential because that's where you get your market research. That's where you meet the people, you find what they need. I feel like the reason that so many businesses fail, like that whole like 50% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, that comes from this like notion of like, I'm just going to do what I want and what I want to see. But clearly, Kayla, you're such a like loving, open, receptive person that takes the feedback of the community and does stuff for them. And that's what we need more, like that kind of leader in the community. So point of all of this is you don't have to have like the brilliant, amazing idea right now to start. Like, to start, you just go out and meet people, see what they need, and see what kind of event and environment you can create for them to like bring this awesomeness all together. And I think it's so cool.
I love that, and thank you. That just, like, gave me chills. I was like, "Oh, that's so nice." But that's exactly it. Yeah, you don't have to have this brilliant idea. You don't have to have it all figured out, like, right away. I mean, things just start happening once you start putting yourself out there. I'm a very, big believer in, like, if you really set an intention and you maybe it's not very clear at all, because certainly mine was not at first. It becomes more clear as I, continue. But like at first, it was really just like, man, I just really want to have more fun with my friends and not have to be at a diner in Chicago at midnight. So like, no grand idea. That was just it. And then getting to hear like, "Hey, would anybody else like want to do that. And then it just, like snowballed. And that is how it goes. And you get to meet so many cool people. And there's so many people who are so passionate about whatever it is that they're doing. Whether it's the yoga teacher, or there's a woman, Summer, who owns a consignment shop, who let me use her incredible space for a Gatsby event, who I literally met on the street. Like, and no joke, met her on the street. And she was like very bubbly and was like, "Hey, do you want to come check out my shop?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." Like, what are we doing? I don't even know. It was just like things like that, and walk through. Nothing was prepared yet. She literally just like started this, and her and I clicked right away. And that's how I had got to have a Gatsby party in like a 1920s style attorney's office. Like, just things like that where you're like, what in the world? This all just happened because I was open to it and I was ready to go talk to people. And that's just kind of how I try to be.
Yeah, the world is a very beautiful place, and I know that it can get a little rough out there, and there's lots of reasons for people to want to numb themselves. So when you have the courage to, first off, for example, stop drinking, cut your drinking, moderate your drinking, whatever your level is, that already is a courageous step. It's a courageous step to be interested in this industry. So just keep practicing that courage and like showing up and doing the thing. This I can see the same thing about our business. Like when we first started, now granted, we're not an event planning company. We started as just like a very open-ended non-alc consultation for business owners who need help going from, mom and pop to like a legitimate sustainable business model that you can sell, franchise, whatever. And then as we kept going, like, we'd put some stuff up on LinkedIn or Instagram, and we'd be like, "Hey, I mean, here's some topics we love. Hey, let's out. Hey, maybe do you want to maybe talk to us about some stuff? Like, what do you need? Like all the things." And then we kept getting so many requests that we weren't expecting. And then I think the most mind-blowing thing for me is like I came into the industry like wanting to heal the business owners that like burnt themselves out, because the thing is like you can have like there are beautiful spaces and businesses out there that have owners that are just burnt out, and they turned into like
Mhm.
sad, upset people who just like don't know how to be out of survival mode. So then they end up like, falling out of intention, falling out of alignment with their original intention on why they started the business. And to me, that was the biggest heartbreak, because the only thing worse than like never having had a business and like not going through with your idea is going through with your idea and then like just totally abandoning it and poo-pooing all over it because you didn't set yourself up for success. So, my husband and I, we originally were like, okay, well, let's support the people who are already doing these amazing ventures so that the non-alc industry continues to thrive. And what was so interesting was, while yes, we do help established people, there were literally, I'm losing count of the amount of people who are coming out of the woodwork finding us. And I don't even know exactly which ads they're finding us from, but they're like, they're wanting to start these things. That's why like I've been changing this podcast to like speak more towards like, hey, anybody even with just an idea, like what do you want to do? And we've been supporting, like we even launched a new program called the Discovery Phase Launchpad to really help people who want to start these new ideas. So the whole point of this is not just a plug for my cool new program, although if that's you, come hang, but it's about romanticizing that discovery phase, that process of really getting to know your community and see what it is that they need. So you listen, because the more you listen to them, it just, I mean, opportunities just fall in your lap. Like you said, you just meet people on the street because you're open to it and you're just like, what can I do to be in service for people? It's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing, and I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation, because it's those heart tinglies that reminds me why we work weird hours and do all the things we do to make it work.
It's so true. It's just like, okay, this is the good stuff, right? And it is, like you said, it's just, yeah, once you open yourself up and you start doing that, it does kind of just fall into place. And that's I love what you guys are doing for business owners or people with ideas, because I've seen it already. Like, well, one, I've experienced being like just so overwhelmed with like ideas, and this person's reaching out and this person, and I'm like, oh my God, like where is my intention in all of this? Thankfully, I have a very good support group of friends and family who are like, okay, hold on, like let's reshift you over there, but like it can be really hard to do that, like you were saying earlier, like, oh, event planning, that's so fun, that's so this, you're like, it is, and it's so rewarding, but it's also so many small details that other people are not thinking of, and that all falls into your head, and sometimes that means at 3 a.m. you're writing stuff down in a notebook because you woke up from a dream because you were thinking about it. um and to have a resource like you, like, really working to help people not burn out, or to have those tips on like, hey, like, try this. It's very amazing, and I think it just goes to show like another way, like, we, humanity, with its faults and whatnot, really do get back to the core of really wanting to be able to lift each other up in these spaces, and I'm really so grateful to be a part of it.
Aw, yay. Yeah, I feel the same way. And, you know, this next question I have, I really love to ask everybody who comes into the podcast. But I want
Mhm.
to mention before I spill my favorite question here that there's a lot of gratitude for where we're at. And a lot of the inventions, formulations, like all of these things that we love about the industry, like this was not everybody's first attempt. Like we've all had our flops or our like trials and figuring out where we need to be. So that being said, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about the non-alc industry, and by change, I don't mean like, oh, we're talking shit about this one thing, but more so like, what would you like to see evolve? What would you like to see more of? If you could just wave this magic wand and be like, oh, that would just make things even cooler right now, what would it be and why?
I think if I could wave a magic wand, it would just be to say, walk in and talk to a bar owner or a restaurant owner and say, "Hey guys, I have these awesome products," and them just say, "Okay, of course, you
Of
this is
course.
great, because of course we need that. That's awesome. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention." That is a dream, I'm like, that, and that, because I do want to see these things evolve, and I am seeing it. I just, if I did have that wonderful magic wand, it would just be able to say, "Hey, coming over on Friday night with a couple samples, you pick which one you like, and then let's roll," and then let's plan a party for you while we're at it. Those are the things that I see happening, but I would like to see them happening faster, because I want everybody to get to have this experience, not just in Chicago, but everywhere. And if I were, like, being in a bigger city gives you definitely different opportunities, but like, I'm still rooting for my like small town back home, like for the bars to be doing it over there too, to just walk in and say, "Hey, what's up? You ready for this? Because you're gonna have an awesome experience. Let's just do it." So that's what I want.
Me too. I will work so hard next to you to make this happen. All we got to do is keep having these conversations, keep spreading the word, share the link to the episode with your favorite friends, and tell them to send it to a friend who might be in need. It really
Yeah,
is that simple. It's literally about inviting people out of their loneliness and showing them the coolness of what we have going on. And that
we've
being
got it.
said, I want to hear the cool things that are going on next. So tell us, give us all the plugs. What are the cool events coming up in this final quarter and final 4 months of the year?
Oh my gosh, it's all happening so much. So just this weekend alone, I have a singles mingle soberish edition. We're doing a field day in Chicago. I'm super pumped. I teamed up with Let's Do Fun Things Chicago. We've got all, like, think second grade field day. That's what we're doing. and it's for singles. So we were like, okay,
Aw.
that sounds fun. So that'll be really cool to connect. And then Sunday, I'm teamed up with Strength in the City in Chicago. It's just like a whole fitness festival, which, like, okay, I'm into it, but also I'm there for the lounge. So there'll be like a NAPS lounge there. Gonna have some cool giveaways. There's Oktoberfest, and I did say that, Oktoberfest, coming to the Lincoln Park Zoo on September 20th. Another great community here in Chicago is Chicago AF, and the founder, Carrie May, she is helping to put that together. I will be there in a support naps, fun, look at animals kind of way. So it's an entire like Oktoberfest, but with all non-alc products. Super excited about that. And we're gonna look at the animals, which is also very exciting. And then Tire Zoo literally is not serving alcohol, which is insane. It's
Wow.
so cool. So I'm
That's so
super
cool.
like crazy to me. That's Lincoln Park Zoo. And so that's gonna be really, really exciting. Um, then let's see, October, I have a couple small things going on in October. One I'm really excited about though. I There's a really cool non-alc up in Wausau, Wisconsin. I don't know, you're from Wisconsin, so you may know it.
Mhm.
It's just such a sweet little cool town, and it's called Forward Beverage Company. I'm working on having a
Yes.
little, yes, their products are so good. Like if you do the CBD, THC sort of situation, whatever your vibe, they taste amazing, and they're just really cool people. So I'm excited to do something with them. And then November 2nd is my Taylor Swift party,
Yes.
with Generation NA, and that's another thing. If I wave my magic wand, we'll be able to give Taylor Swift a Naps menu. So just
Yes.
also that. And then the big one for the end of the year is our Naps like end of year party. We're having a fashion show. It's gonna be so fun. I am just It's a fashion show with all non-alc products, like, in the middle of downtown Chicago, like, dressed to impress, and like I said, themes, 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 and I am so ready to blow it out for that one. So there's so much on the books, and we're planning into 2025 right now, which I cannot even believe that that is life right now. So, yeah, lots of stuff.
So many fun things. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge, your wisdom, and all of your stories with us today. Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
I think just keep going wherever you're at, whatever path you're on. That's keep going. People said it to me for a really long time, and I didn't even know what they meant really, but I'm gonna continue that and pass that forward. Keep
Mm,
going, whatever you're doing.
yes. The only time you actually fail is when you give up. But until
Exactly.
then, it's just another trial. That's it.
That's it.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Kayla. It's honestly been such a wonderful, deeply impactful conversation.
I am so grateful that you asked me and very happy to have done it.
Yay! If anyone wants to learn anything else, wants to attend any of the NAPS Chicago events, you can take a look at the description of this episode. You'll see all the links. You'll also see where you can connect with Kayla on Instagram to get those quick updates. And also, if the Discovery Phase Launchpad sounded like it was something that could be right up your alley, that is also in the description of this episode. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, fun stories, anything you want to share, please send an email to hello@marinamars.com. Even if that message is for Kayla, I can absolutely pass that along for you as well. But just know you're not alone. You've got this. We've got your back. And if you need anything, just let us know.